All right, today we are pulling back the curtain on psychology. We're going to get right into the engine room and see how we go from just a hunch about why people do things to an actual scientific fact. So, how does it all work? Let's find out.
I mean, this is the big question, right? We all have our own little theories about why we act the way we do, but how do we get past our own gut feelings and biases to figure out what's really happening inside our heads? And this slide right here, it just nails the whole issue. On the left, you've got this common belief, something you might hear anyone say. But look at the right. That's how a scientist thinks. See the difference? It's specific. It's something you can actually test. And that is the launch pad for real psychological science.
Right, and that's really the heart of it. Psychology isn't just about making good guesses. It's a science. And because it's a science, we need solid methods to cut through all the noise, to check our own biases at the door, and find the real patterns. Because without a method, it's all just opinion.
So, the big question is, how do they actually do it? Well, think of it like this. Psychologists have a toolkit, and it's filled with these specialized methods. Each tool is designed to answer a different kind of question about the mind. So let's open up that toolkit and take a look at the 5 main tools they've got inside.
Okay, first up, we've got the heavy hitter, the real powerhouse of the toolkit, the experiment. This is the only method, the only one, that can truly answer that all-important question, why? It's designed specifically to find out if one thing actually causes another.
And, the way it works is actually pretty simple when you break it down. Researchers just change one single thing. That's called the independent variable. Then they measure what happens. That's the dependent variable. And here's the key. They compare it to a control group that didn't get the change.
Let's make this super concrete. Say you want to know if caffeine really helps memory. You'd give one group real coffee and another group a placebo, something that seems like coffee but isn't. The coffee is what you changed, the memory test scores are what you measure, and by comparing the two groups, you get your answer. It's simple, it's elegant, and it is incredibly powerful.
Okay, but what happens when you can't run a tightly controlled experiment? I mean, that's not always possible, right? That's when researchers reach for the next tool, the correlational study. This is all about looking for relationships, just to see if two things seem to move together.
Now, everybody listen up. If there is one thing you take away from all this, let it be this right here. This is the golden rule. Just because two things are connected, it does not mean one causes the other. There could always be something else going on in the background.
Think about it. We all know that students who study more usually get better grades. There's a link, a correlation. But can we say for sure that the studying caused the grade? Maybe. But then again, maybe the students who were just more motivated to begin with were the ones who both studied more and were going to get higher grades anyway. See? The link is there, but the cause, that's still a question mark.
So, what about those really, really rare situations? I mean, the 1 in a million cases. That's where tool number 3 comes in, the case study. This is where you do a super deep dive into just one person or a tiny group to get this incredibly rich, detailed picture.
Yeah, these are perfect for looking at things you could never, ever ethically create in a lab. For instance, by studying a single patient who has a very specific and unique type of brain injury, scientists can learn a ton about what that part of the brain actually does for all of us.
All right, for our 4th tool, we're leaving the lab behind and heading out into the wild, the real world, that is. This is called naturalistic observation, where a researcher basically becomes a fly on the wall. They just watch and record behavior as it's happening, without getting involved.
The classic example, and it's a great one, is a researcher watching kids on a playground. By just blending into the background, a psychologist can see how kids actually share, or argue, or make friends, giving them this really authentic data that you just can't get in some sterile lab.
And last but not least, what if you need to know what a whole bunch of people are thinking? Well, sometimes the easiest way is you just ask them. And that's our 5th tool, the survey or questionnaire.
So you could poll hundreds of students to look for patterns between how much they sleep and how stressed they feel. But, and this is a big but, you have to be careful. This method relies on people telling you the truth. And they might not remember things perfectly, or they might just give the answer they think you want to hear. So it's a powerful tool, for sure, but you gotta use it wisely.
Okay, so we've got our 5 tools in the toolkit. But just having a hammer and a saw doesn't make you a master carpenter. You have to know the rules. And in psychology, there are some very strict principles that make sure the research is solid, reliable, and trustworthy. One of the biggest rules is this idea of an operational definition.
Now, it sounds all technical, but it's actually pretty simple. It's about taking a fuzzy idea and making it something you can actually measure. You can't put a ruler on stress, right? But you can measure things like heart rate, or the level of the stress hormone cortisol, or even a self-report score from 1 to 10. This is what makes psychology a real, measurable science.
And then there are two more principles that are just non-negotiable. First is replication. Can another scientist somewhere else do your exact same study and get the same results? If they can't, your finding is on shaky ground. Second is random sampling. You have to make sure the people in your study are a good reflection of the larger population you're interested in.
And maybe most important of all, research absolutely has to be ethical. These 4 pillars here, they are ironclad. Researchers must get consent, they have to keep information confidential, they have to protect people from harm, and they have to explain everything to the participants afterward. These aren't suggestions. They're the bedrock of responsible science.
All right, let's wrap this up. Let's pull it all together and ask, what's the big takeaway from all this? How does psychology really work? So here's the bottom line. Psychology is a science that goes way beyond just guessing. It systematically tests ideas. To do that, researchers have this amazing toolkit with 5 different methods for 5 different jobs. And the whole thing is built on the solid foundation of rules that make sure the results are trustworthy and the process is ethical.
And that kind of brings us full circle, because now you understand the basic toolkit that every psychologist uses. So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. Think about all the common sense things people say about human nature. What's the one you'd want to put to the test first?